Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3733. Wait. Oh boy. Oh, that is nice. All right. Okay. So today's date is November 30, 2028. Sorry, 28. Oh, not 28. November 30, 2025. It's been almost like exactly 9:35 a.m. Yeah, I'm kind of like simply sitting here at my rooftop and kind of like sucking the sun somehow. Yeah, it's a bit really cold in here. Okay, and basically early morning is a kind of like a bit really lazy and kind of like I just read the book and kind of like sit in front of the sun and kind of like soak up the sun little bit, kind of like a feel get a little bit warm and stuff like that. Yeah, it just felt really good, by the way. All right, yeah. Should we jump into the question? All right, let's go. Okay, question is, what if innovation required cross-culture team? Oh, that is a really good question. All right, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is kind of like a something very. It's kind of like a very different question. It's okay. What is actually my script? I just completely forgot what is it. I don't know. I just kind of like a zone out the moment for a while. Okay, yeah. What is at least this thing? Why I'm asking this question? Okay, what if question is kind of like a little bit interested way to give the answer. It kind of like a force you to think about that reality. And when I try to think about that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my knowledge and experience that I've been through and kind of like somebody try to give the particular information. Okay, yeah. Uh, um, Disclaimer, the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just my opinion, and opinion are subjective. All right. Okay, what is it? Right now I'm kind of like zoning out a little bit. Why is this thing? Is because I'm kind of like a something. Okay, what exactly happened? That yesterday I haven't really read my book. Okay, I decided that I should supposed to be read my book every single day for half an hour. But yesterday I was kind of like something quiet and busy and things, and that I won't be able to kind of like read my book. So today I decided that let's read my book. So I was kind of like reading a book for yesterday's half an hour and today's half an hour. That means 1 hour. So I'm kind of like endlessly kind of like reading my book for an 1 hour non-stop. Now, basically, is this thing, there is no wrong to read a book for an hour. It's not really wrong. But probably is this thing now I was kind of like reading it like, okay, because of that, now I haven't really read that many book. And I haven't really read that much book. Okay, yeah. Uh, since the beginning, like since like in my entire period of lifetime, reading a book is not even my thing. Okay, yeah. But before, like basically is this thing that I realized that reading is somewhat something really essential and you have to read the books and things and that since I realized that reading a book is really essential things, so I'm kind of like started reading a book, and I kind of like kept it low little bit, like basically just half an hour and that's it. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing, today I'm kind of like read a book for an hour and I kind of like feel like that key uh I'm kind of like a feel that I'm kind of like somebody, like while I was kind of like reading that particular book, I was kind of like somebody just in the book. Yeah. Like basically what is at least this book about, what kind of like a book that you are reading. No, I'm not kind of like reading any kind of like a book. Okay, let me give you context. Okay, yeah. So basically I am reading my book, My Artifact. Now what is actually this book about? Okay, so basically the stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, these are the kind of like assembly the audio diary. Okay, yeah. I wanted to kind of like assembly read my audio diary. Okay, yeah. How do I supposed to read? You are kind of like recording this thing, na? Yeah, I'm recording this thing. I upload that particular file into the YouTube. YouTube creates the subtitle, auto subtitle. Okay, yeah. I copy that subtitle, put it into chat GPT, kind of like some put the prompt that can make it fun to read, make it kind of like something easy to understand and things and that. And basically when the chat GPT kind of like give me output, and when I kind of like put it on the book and kind of like print that thing and I will read that stuff, I just feel like that, oh my god. It just felt like that. It's like really amazing. Yeah. So that's some kind of like a reading book. Felt like a really, really good, really, really great. And I don't know why, but sometimes the end of winter, it kind of like a feel really weird. Okay, yeah, like your entire body get warm up, but your leg are kind of like a bit really cold. It just felt like that. Ki your feet is never get that much warm. Like basically this thing, my entire body get warm up by the sun and things like that, but my feet, it kind of like feels like I need more sun. Oh, I have still that kind of like a fun to kind of like say this thing. I don't know why. I'm still kind of like in the book right now. Whatever. Yeah, the topic is really good. Yeah, let's proceed with this thing. Okay, the question is that, what if? Okay, yeah, wait. Let me. Okay, yeah. What if the innovation required a cross culture team? Okay, yeah. What is that? Is this question? All right, this question is bit really interesting. Let me explain a little bit so that you might gonna understand what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. Um. Okay. So every person comes from the different kind of like assembly, different thought process and different understanding the living the life. Okay, yeah. Okay, if you're not really understanding, let me give you perspective. Okay, yeah. I'm belong to the India, so I'm gonna tell you my thought process regarding about kind of like assembly how is the life. Okay, how it kind of like assembly is this life from Indian point of perspective, because I am Indian. Okay, yeah. Is that key work hard, kind of like a do your work, honesty and things and that, and you will kind of like assembly good to go. You will get the success and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now this is my thought process of living the life. Okay, yeah. Now different ethnicity of the people have kind of like a different thought process of the living the life. Okay, yeah. Now what exactly is this thing? What I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to tell you is this thing that every person is kind of like a bit really different, and their surrounding shapes that thought process. That the surrounding of that particular person shape his thought process. Let me give you context. The person who born in a religious space, okay, yeah, that in that particular religious place, that particular person might gonna think about the life is that the gods and things are kind of like a somewhat something really essential part of the life, because he kind of like a been experienced that through. He actually kind of like experienced that key why the kind of like a religious and kind of like a things are very much essential for the life and things like that. The person who born in US and America, at that time religious and culture is not even that a thing. They're kind of like a meant to be focused on kind of like a fun, enjoy, and kind of like do the hard work when it necessary and things like that. So for them living the life is kind of like a far more different. Okay, yeah. If you're born in China, you might kind of like realize that you always have pressure, or you always have kind of like a proof to somebody to kind of like somebody achieve something, or you cannot able to do, you don't really get that much freedom and things like that. And you are kind of like a meaning of the life is kind of like a being that how much you effort that you do and how much kind of like a saving that you do. Okay, yeah. I'm actually focusing on saving. Okay, I don't know, but kind of like I watch kind of like a couple of video that the Chinese people are kind of like they save money a lot. Okay, yeah. In every possible way, like basically FD, mutual fund, SIP, and basically I don't know what they're gonna do. I think that like I just heard that Chinese people have motto regarding about that the how much they could save the money. It kind of like a resonate that how good is their life in the future. Probably, I'm not really sure about that. Okay, yeah, but still is this thing that we are human. Okay, we all are human, and we also have kind of like a somewhat something similar thought process regarding about living the life, but little bit different context. Okay, it's a kind of like a things that a human with a different costume. Okay, yeah, a person look kind of like a bit really different regarding about the costume and look according to where that particular person belongs to. Okay, American person or Chinese person or Indian person or African person, Australian person or Russian or European person. every person kind of like a look really different according to the kind of like a culture and according to the costume and things like that. But in somewhat something, all are humans. In the end, that all are humans. Okay, yeah. But still, what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki usually when you try to kind of like gather all those different type of people gather together, they are kind of like a somebody invested something very different thoughts process regarding about making the life better. Okay, yeah. If you're still not really understanding, okay, let me give you the understanding. Let me give you the perspective. Okay, yeah. Let's just say I am the owner of the Facebook. Let's just say I am the Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, yeah. And I have the company named Facebook. Okay, yeah. Now Facebook is a kind of like a somebody company, a social media platform where kind of like a people who kind of like a share their kind of like a photos or things on their kind of like a groups and with the friends and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing. Now my platform is somewhat something available in every continent. Okay, yeah. Instead of China, okay, yeah, because China has a regulation. But if I kind of like exclude the China, then kind of like somebody Facebook is availability in everywhere, every part of the corner. Also North Korea. Okay, yeah. They don't really kind of like allow them. Okay, yeah. Besides China and besides North Korea, like basically Facebook availability is in everywhere. Okay, yeah, all around the world and things like that. Okay, so basically is this thing na ki if I wanted to kind of like if I wanted to kind of like somebody changes in my application, or if I want changes means what? Changes means like that ki if I wanted to kind of like somebody is this thing that ki something changes, like basically is this thing like something that ki I wanted to change something. Okay, I don't know what would be that, but I wanted to change something. But I need a kind of like opinion. Like basically this is, I am a Mark Zuckerberg. I am from kind of like a US, and I'm actually have a thought process regarding about US people. But my platform is kind of like a somebody utilizing in all over the world. Okay, yeah. So it's really essential to me to kind of like get the opinion from different kind of like people who are actually belong to the different community and different religions and things like that. So basically I kind of like somebody make a team. Okay, yeah, from different part of the people. Okay, yeah. Like basically from Indian team, kind of like a somebody person from India, person from like a different corner of the world and things like that. They gather together and kind of like I make a team. Okay, yeah. Now I kind of like tell them, okay, yeah, ki this is the kind of like a changes that I wanted to do. Like let's just say changes means like that. Let's take a change that ki I wanted to change the color of the Facebook from blue to little bit green. Okay, yeah, just simple. Yeah, I wanted to change the color from Facebook color from blue to green. Okay, yeah. Now I need this opinion from every different kind of like assembly people. Okay, yeah, different ethnicity and different kind of like assembly religious perspective and things like that. Now I'm kind of like getting a very different opinion regarding about that. Okay, yeah, and that is what kind of like assembly innovation comes very like very differently. Okay, very differently. It's a, I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. Okay, but when I try to kind of like somebody just talk to those 100 people, like talk to all those people, I kind of like made a team regarding about all those people who are kind of like a different part of the world. Okay, yeah, and kind of like tell them that he innovates something. Okay, yeah, like I kind of like tell them that innovates something or something. Okay, yeah. So what they will gonna innovate? Let's just say that I kind of like somebody tell them, okay, yeah, I kind of like gather the team from all around the world, and I kind of like tell them that innovate kind of like somebody a best way to save the money. Okay, best way to save the money, a kind of like somebody application or things or that. Or I'm kind of like give the command that basically you have to make the application regarding about how the teenager should supposed to be save the money for the future and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing because of I have kind of like somebody different part of the people who actually kind of like thinking about how does people actually save the money. Oh yeah. Now regarding about the saving money, very different people have kind of like a different thought process regarding about saving the life, saving the money. Okay, belong to the India. So basically in India, how do we save the money? Obviously FD, SIP, mutual funds and things like that. But these are kind of like a very upper level, na? Okay, my focus is for the teenagers, like basically the teenager who are kind of like in the school or in the high school. And basically it's this thing, they wanted to kind of like save some sort of amount of money, because the money education is somewhat something really essential and kind of like early as possible to the people who are kind of like somebody step into the kind of like a real world and things like that. So this is kind of like somebody a beginning step. Okay, obviously they didn't really have the Demat account, or they don't really have any kind of like somebody the bank account and things like that, so that they would supposed to be start their kind of like somebody the SIP and things. It would not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing, I have to, my application is kind of like a meant to teach the teenager that how do they supposed to be save the money, and kind of like a giving them essential importance of the life about the regarding about the money. Okay, yeah. So when I kind of like said this thing, if I'm kind of like a Indian person, so what is actually my thought process, what is actually this thing, what is actually my thought process regarding about the saving the money? Probably almost nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. Also I'm trying to tell you from my point of perspective, what I've been through. Like basically when I was a teenager, saving money is not even nothing. Nothing really at all. Like basically after the age of 25, you kind of like realize that ki, okay, the money is somewhat something really essential, and we don't really have that much information regarding about how do you supposed to save the money and things like that. And after the age of 25, I started kind of like saving some sort of amount of money. Sometime I save, sometime I kind of like a deposit, kind of like, yeah. But after the 25, it actually happened. Okay, yeah. When I was a teenager, saving money is not even a thing. Yeah, I didn't really know anything at all. Probably till now people are kind of like somebody understand what is actually saving money, or but at my time when I was a teenager, probably saving money is not even a thing. Okay, yeah. And why is that thing? Is because of that key lack of education. Because in I'm belong to the India, and Indian education doesn't really focus on kind of like only financial education. What is actually meant, what is actually financial thing, how do you supposed to save the money, how do you exactly kind of like utilize the money for, like basically saving the money means what? Okay, yeah. That is what kind of like most of people I don't really understand. Saving the money means what? Saving the money is not a kind of like a things that you have a salary of kind of like a 10,000 rupees, and you are kind of like a saving for, let's just say, 2,000 rupees for that particular stuff and things like that. Is it that you call saving? I didn't really call it saving. That is called saving too, but probably is this thing, there are more to it. Okay, let me give you context. Okay, when you are a teenager, you are kind of like somebody, first time you are kind of like somebody understanding the world and things and that and that. Also, I'm telling you from Indian point of perspective. Okay, yeah, because I'm not really sure about the other people point of perspective, but I'm from India, so basically I'm telling you from my point of perspective. Okay, yeah. So basically when I was a teenager, I was kind of like somebody very tech nerd. I still very tech nerd, by the way. I kind of like somebody have a kind of like somebody wanted to know regarding about new technology, and mobile phones are kind of like a really crazy thing. When I see a kind of like a smartphone, I just kind of like blew my mind and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing now. I seen that most of the teenagers actually buy the iPhone. Okay, yeah. iPhone is a very expensive phone, by the way. And in India, okay, I'm not really sure about the US, but they might have kind of like a cheaper, but in India, iPhone is a kind of like considered as a kind of like a very expensive phone, as well as very luxury phone too. Now, most of the teenagers are actually buying this iPhone, which is they don't really need it that. Why? Because of that, it's very expensive, and there are very cheaper phone are actually available. Those are kind of like a really good in everything. They don't really read that much. They don't really need that much kind of like a very expensive iPhone to kind of like a somebody this and that and that and that. Saving money is kind of like a call them that key. What is actually that you need and how much that you spend. If you need a phone, probably 10,000, 20,000 rupees of phone would be good enough. You shouldn't supposed to be buy kind of like simply 1 lakh rupees of iPhone. It's not really that much matter. So that is called saving. Means like that you are not really buying iPhone, and you are kind of like comfortable at using your 20,000 rupees phone. That is called saving. I and this kind of like education that no one actually taught me when I was kind of like a children, when I was no one actually. So my financial education is nothing really at all. I didn't really have anything at all. So basically this thing that I've been through. Okay, yeah. So if I am a kind of like a something, if I am in that particular team, if I'm in that particular team and I'm kind of like representing my India and things like that, I would kind of like tell this perspective that key, what is actually that my thought process regarding about the saving the money and things like that. I didn't really have that much anything at all, and I kind of like mentioned that key in India might be kind of like a luxury, and things are like luxury things or status things are most of people are kind of like chasing that thing. Saving money is not kind of like a meant to be saving money, is meant to be kind of like a telling them what is actually matter, matter what kind of like some equipment that they should supposed to be do. They shouldn't supposed to be spend that much amount of money on mobile phones or any kind of like a clothing brands or things or that, because they are not actually serving that much purposes in the end. Okay, yeah, the clothes that you are wearing and the branded clothes that you are wearing, there is no difference at all. The mobile phone that you have, the iPhone that you have, is there is no difference at all. Both are kind of like a serve the similar purpose, and that's it. And you are not kind of like add any kind of like a small value to kind of like a buy something very expensive things or stuff like that. Look, this is what kind of like a something the saving meanings for me, and this is what kind of like something that I kind of like a put the input my thought process. Okay, yeah. No, basically this is just my thought process. Okay, yeah. But every country's representative have a different opinion regarding about the saving the money. Okay, yeah. Let's just say kind of like a somebody in the Chinese people, they also get kind of like a somebody very at early stage, they are getting the financial education as early as they possible. Okay, and that is really good thing. In the US, they also kind of like get the financial education regarding about what is actually is this thing and how should we supposed to be kind of like a lead the teenager to kind of like saving the money and things like that. Okay, okay, let me give you, I haven't really done yet enough. Okay, yeah. uh, in US, okay, I kind of like somebody watch, I never really been on US, but I kind of like somebody try to tell you from US point of perspective, because I watch a lot of kind of like somebody US television and US movies and things like that. So somewhat something I might know, but I'm not really exactly right, but I'm trying to tell you as possible as it can. Okay, in India, okay, in India, usually child are kind of like a live with their parents for forever. Okay, yeah. It's not in a US, like a basically is this thing, a child after the age of 18, the child has a kind of like a doesn't consider as a child, it considered as an adult. And basically that adult have a kind of like a somebody took the decision regarding about what he been through and things like that. And parents are not that much kind of like a somebody evolving in things like that, nothing at all. Like basically in the US, usually the child who kind of like a cross 18 or 20, then probably is this saying that particular child or that particular adult would kind of like a take the responsibility that where he should supposed to be live, who do we supposed to be married and things like that. And parents did not really interfere with this thing. It's their culture, by the way. Okay, it's their culture. So basically from them point of perspective, kind of like a somebody is this thing, saving money means like that key investing money on kind of like a somebody healthcare and things like that. Because in the US, healthcare are very expensive. Okay, yeah. And they cannot afford to kind of like a somebody be a kind of, they cannot afford any kind of like a somebody healthcare system. They need a kind of like a insurance. Okay, yeah. So that's why at monthly they are kind of like a pay the premium, so that every time they kind of like a somebody gets something wrong or kind of like a health crisis would gonna happen, that insurance money would kind of like a cover them rest of things, because they are cut off from their family. Okay, they like basically since the after the age of 18, they are kind of like a by their own, so they are kind of like a saving the saving up the money and things like that. They are kind of like a doing the part-time job, they are kind of like a somebody living the life in the hotel or things like that, as well as kind of like they are doing the study. Or it doesn't mean that they are kind of like not have really good family relationship. No, they have, but still somewhat from the financial point of perspective, as a children they are kind of like something like kind of like somebody focus on them. Okay, like basically like the parents are not kind of like somebody interfere in their business and things like that. Okay, which is kind of like a give them freedom, as well as kind of like somebody give the responsibility to the US people that they should supposed to be save the money as early as possible as it can and things like that. Okay, as also kind of like a somebody they everything are kind of like a very expensive in US, like basically educations and college and things like that, very expensive. They cannot afford a tuition fees and things like that. So that's why they kind of like a take the student loan, and they kind of like try to kind of like a pay the student loan for the kind of like a till the life and things. I don't know, but is this thing that the saving the money from US point of perspective is far more different. Okay, yeah, they might think that my probably existing saving money is kind of like a let them teach regarding about that key probably insurance and insurance your life and things and that and that. Okay, let me give you another perspective. In India, insurance like basically is this thing that key you should supposed to be invest money on insurance is not even a thing. Like probably almost like a very few people are kind of like somebody do the insurance over here, because healthcare is very kind of like a cheaper are here. Okay, yeah, it's not really that expensive. It's expensive, but kind of like a things that now if you are kind of like a had an accident or maybe just had a surgery or transplant, then you will kind of like a really require a lot of amount of money. But if you kind of like a somebody getting little bit things, it kind of like it kind of like a somebody happen very cheaply. It's not really that much kind of like a somebody expensive and things like that. So kind of like a somebody the kind of like a insurance is not even a kind of like a thing. People are kind of like a investing money on LIC and things like that. because after you die someone kind of like a get the kind of like a somebody like a basically is this thing, after you die you will other like your descendant will kind of like a get the money, or your wife will kind of like get the money or things like that. Like basically is this thing, you are the kind of like only person who are kind of like earning the money and things like that, and if something happened to you then probably it might create the chaos and things like that. For that LIC it kind of like established to kind of like settle that little bit better and stuff like that. LICs actually exist in India. I'm not really sure about it actually exist in US, but probably it might gonna exist over there too. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing na, ki every different ethnicity of the people have kind of like a different thought process regarding about the way that they live, with the way that they live the life, and they kind of like provide the opinion regarding about very different thought process, which is kind of like a very different thing, which is kind of like a things that na, like basically if I am the owner, if I am the Mark Zuckerberg, and I'm kind of like tell them that ki I wanted to change the logo color from blue to green, then probably every different person has their opinion regarding about that. Like basically is this thing, let me give you perspective. In Facebook color is a blue is because of that ki basically blue is represent the kind of like a somebody the friendships and things and that and that. Okay, if I kind of like a let them green, that means it kind of like a represent very different message. It represent little bit of kind of like a somebody the green kind of like a somebody related to the kind of like a environmental stuff and things like that, which kind of like a really good initiative regarding about you are kind of like a changing your kind of like a platform regarding about blue to green, which kind of like a represent that how much you are kind of like a enthusiastic regarding about the nature and things like that, which is really good. But does it kind of like a resonate the same kind of like a somebody feeling of friendship when it kind of like a green? Because most of people kind of like use the Facebook is not because of kind of like they are really enthusiastic regarding about the green and things like that, or kind of like a sort of nature impact of things like they are kind of like focusing on the social been through what is actually happening in social life and what is actually happening in your friend's social life, and kind of like somebody they are interfering, they are putting the like comments and things like that. So yeah, probably every person has a kind of like a different opinion regarding about that, and as a person, as a chairman, as a Mark Zuckerberg will kind of like get the very in detail in depth knowledge regarding about that how does other ethnicity of the people kind of like look very differently regarding about the every perspective, and that's what kind of like simply you just learn a lot. Okay, so basically is this thing, if you kind of like launch any kind of like a product or any kind of like services all around the world, then probably it would kind of like definitely work when it kind of like simply the different ethnicity of people are kind of like gathered together and kind of like a work and your team, which kind of like simply really good. Like basically whatever the kind of like a platform they would create, or whatever the kind of like simply the things that they will create, it kind of like simply work in every corner of the world, because I'm kind of like giving the perspective from the every corner of the world, which kind of like really help them help me to kind of like somebody that key spread up my ideas or spread up my thought process, spread up my application to the rest of the world, which kind of like a feel somewhat something really good. Okay, yeah, and it kind of like a somebody right, but it's not really that good and great. Okay, yeah, probably is this thing when you try to kind of like gather all the ethnicity of the people, all the kind of like religious and all the kind of like demographic people, then probably there is a kind of like a comes to a different problem. Language is the one thing. Okay, yeah, most of people don't really understand English language. Okay, yeah, somewhat something people understand, but still some of the people are not really understanding their language. Okay, language might be a kind of like a bit barrier. Okay, yeah, also another thing is that na ki like basically is this thing respect. Okay, yeah, means like that when you try to interact with the kind of like a different demographic people, then you have to be respect regarding about everything. Okay, yeah, let me give you perspective is that key making fun of them is not that kind of like a stuff. Like basically is this thing, you can fun of your friend is because of that you know your friend and things like that, but making fun of the other demographic people, that other another demographic people might gonna hurt you and things like that, and this is the not the thing that you want, because of this thing that particular person comes from the very different thought process and different kind of like a things. The way that you think is kind of like a fun, but from them point of perspective it's not fun, it's a kind of like a things that they are between serious and stuff like that. So you have to maintain that respect too, which is kind of like a really essential. Okay, respect as well as kind of like a privacy, with kind of like simply give them opinion and freedom to kind of like they could express their thoughts regarding about what they kind of like think about and stuff like that. So yeah, but still if you kind of like somebody manage them, and if you kind of like manage the team, the kind of like somebody global team, then it would be kind of like a really good for your platform, really good for your kind of like somebody something like that, your business and things like that. If you are kind of like running a business in an entire global network, then this would be kind of like a stuff. All right, this is my thought process regarding about this question, and thank you.